Good evening, folks. I'm going to call the meeting to order, August 3rd, 2023, our regular business meeting. If you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Alderman Ricker.
Here.
Alderman Rose. Alderman Rose.
Here.
Alderman Schuman.
Here.
Alderman Osteen.
Here.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
And Mayor Harmson.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. We're going to move on to the citizens' communication. This is a time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the mayor and board on any topic that is not a public hearing. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and the board may be sent to the city clerk at tberreth@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting day, the first and third Thursday of each month. Submitted questions and comments may be read during the citizens' communications section of the agenda. The Board of Aldermen will not take any action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later time. The Mayor and the Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. Is there anyone here in person who would like to address the board? If so, please come up one at a time and sign in, and you'll have 3 minutes.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dillalexi Morley, and I am the 911 dispatch supervisor for the city of Osage Beach. I'm here to address the merger that's being considered with Lake Ozark, considering our staffing level. Our center is allotted 11 positions based on the agencies that we currently dispatch for: Osage Beach Fire, Osage Beach Ambulance, and Osage Beach Police. And this is based on a study that was done, a comprehensive study that was done by the city in approximately 2019, if I remember correctly. We currently have 5 positions filled from the allotted 11. Those 11 consist of my position, 2 lead dispatchers, and 8 911 dispatchers. Out of those 5, 4 work alone. Myself, Lead McDonald, and 911 dispatchers Foster, who she's currently here, and Robinson, who is covering dispatch on her own right now. Last year, we hired 1 911 dispatcher, who is Melissa Oakes, and she's also here. She completed successfully the training program, and she makes up our 5. Out of those 5, we have 2 trainers, Lead McDonald and myself. Therefore, we can only train 2 people at a time. Right now, we can only train 1 person at a time because Lead McDonald is gone for an undetermined amount of time. Presently, because Lead McDonald is gone, we're operating with 4, with 3 being able to cover by ourselves. We work excessive amounts of overtime hours with minimal days off, switch from working day shifts to night shifts to provide coverage, and I can't say that it's adequate because it's 1 person at a time. We can't step out of the room for mental breaks after high priority calls. We can't meet the basic needs like using the bathroom, like I mentioned at the Lake Ozark meeting. All of this is with the current agencies we dispatch for, based on that comprehensive study, based on who we've had for certain years, which becomes too much when we are shorted with our staff. Our population continues to increase, and we never know what kind of calls are going to come in. I want to ask you, and think about this when you get to that line item, are we being set up for failure by taking on another agency at our current staffing level? How can we effectively take on another agency when what we have becomes too much for 1 person and there are issues within our own department? How does our agency benefit from the merger when we are about to lose our own because of how this came out? We have 1 dispatcher who specifically stated that because of this, she has decided to leave by March. To others, that may not matter. To us that sit in that dispatch center, it does, and it means the world. I will stop talking.
Do you have anything more to say? You're allowed some more time if you want to speak.
I do, and there's not much. Thank you. Our agenda for tonight's meeting states that the agreement with Lake Ozark shall be contingent upon Osage Beach hiring sufficient dispatchers. What is sufficient dispatchers is not defined there. Is it our current 4 because Lake Ozark wants this to happen sooner than later and has set a date of September 1st, according to the agenda that they just passed the first draft on, which is before Bike Fest? How much is this Lake Ozark merger worth? Is it worth the lives of responding personnel or that of a citizen because we as dispatchers are overwhelmed and the possibility of this merger taking place in a few weeks has only added more stress? How can the city accomplish its mission of providing superior service with openness and integrity without putting its own expectations into practice and taking care of and considering the people who work to make that mission happen? There was no openness and integrity in how this came about. We have been short-staffed since 2014, and the past 2 years, we have been at our lowest. So I ask, why have this merger now? Thank you for allowing me the extra time.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, could I make a comment to that? I know this
Certainly.
is probably just, when this was presented, one of the first things I thought about was the staffing levels. And I know this is going to be part of line item public agenda later in comments, et cetera. But if we're absorbing their call center, does that mean we can also absorb their employees?
Well, let's
part
get
of
to that.
our
on
I know
the
we'll get
agenda.
to it, but
Yes,
I understand what you're saying. That was one of the first things I thought about. But that's-
I got this. I got this. Thank you.
She's sticking around for that.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Hello, I'm Travis Morley.
You're up.
You got to be quick.
Okay, so I'm addressing the same thing, the dispatch merger with Lake Ozark. Also, I have, if the agreement is contingent upon the sufficient dispatchers, I would like to also know what that number would be, and I would ask that maybe you guys consider setting a number if this agreement passed. As Lexi had said, we did do that study in 2019, and they recommended 11 full-time, plus they recommended hiring 2 part-time. That was for our call load then. So you add what's expected to be an 18% additional call load on our dispatch. It seems that they should be at least full staff as of what they should have been recommended in 2019. Also, in regards to the 18% call volume that's predicted, will the increased duties of the dispatchers, will that result in a raise, additional dispatchers, and so on? If there is a raise, will that be applied only to the dispatchers, as they did with the last one? They said a dispatch supervisor and lead, they didn't see the last raise because they weren't referred to as dispatchers. So I'm curious if there is a raise involved due to the increase in duties, if that would apply fairly this time to everybody. Also, in the packet, it said OB hopes to hire Lake Ozark dispatchers. To the best of my knowledge, they only have 3 full-time dispatchers. So what's the likelihood that they're going to come here and work for Osage Beach? I'm sure they're great dispatchers, but our dispatchers have additional training and responsibilities that they don't over there. They're not trained to answer 911 calls, dispatch fire, dispatch ambulance, or perform emergency medical dispatch. Also consider, would they be willing to give up their investment in loggers to come to our city, which we don't have it. So they're not going to continue any type of retirement they've started over there. And again, there's only 3 of them. So how much are we going to benefit as far as employment goes from this merger? Lake Ozark estimates a savings of $250,000 from the merger annually. Lake Ozark, I was informed by Lake Ozark officers that their starting pay would be expected to increase to over $22 an hour because of those savings. Osage Beach officers start out at $18.50 an hour. Lake Ozark will gain an incredible police recruitment advantage over Osage Beach due to this merger. We're also short on police, Lake Ozark is as well. If we do this merger, and it's true their starting pay goes up, they're gonna have a great advantage on us, plus they have loggers.
Go on, please.
So my question that I would ask that you think about is Osage Beach willing to increase our officer salary to remain competitive, to be able to get police recruits in? My last question would be, why now? Lexi clearly went over the staffing issues in there. They're barely enough to get by at this point. They're suffering from burnout, low morale. They can't use the bathroom or eat most of the time while they're doing their job for 12 hours. Sometimes they can, sometimes it's just busy nonstop. They're overloaded, they're barely hanging on at this point. I can see where it could benefit us at some time doing this merger. Why get into a contract now when we have no idea when we'll get that place staffed? It's been 9 years since they were fully staffed. Why not wait until the future when we get to that point? That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Your name and your position, I didn't pick it up.
Travis Morley, I'm a police sergeant.
For Osage Beach?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought so, I just didn't pick it up. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Make sure you sign in, please, too, before you leave, or, yeah, please.
Yes, sir.
I am Corporal Stephen Reiner, Osage Beach Police Department. I was asked to read an email sent by the one dispatcher we have working currently, so I'm just going to read it off. Good morning, Lexi. After you called me last night, I kept thinking more about us taking over Lake Ozark's dispatch, and I'm still trying to figure out how to really voice my concerns so far. Right now, I'm just going to send a kind of bullet list and expand what I can, and if you need clarification, absolutely feel free to ask. Bike Fest. I know it's a short event, but we already have Harley in our city, which is a main hub for it, the Strip being the other. I personally don't know the Strip that well to feel comfortable dispatching for a high priority event and weekend that historically is busier and has big calls. Plus, there's no way one or even two of us could thoroughly handle that call/traffic load for that many consecutive days without absolutely having meltdowns. We don't have enough trainers, and they would have to learn everything. If they're coming here, they would have to learn our entire city, our CAD, our officers' DSNs and quirks and codes, our radio system and setup, our phone greetings, etc. You're a trainer, so I don't have to tell you everything they need to learn. You know it better than I do. That's too much for one trainer to do. We don't have time to interview that many people right now. You and I are working 5 to 6 days a week as is, so one of us would be out of interviews. Of course, would be me, and I totally understand and respect that, of course. Selfish reason, but personally, if I wanted to dispatch for Lake Ozark, I would have applied to work for Lake Ozark. I know I don't know anything about the Strip, nor do I want anything to do with it. Hence why I applied for Osage Beach and not Lake Ozark. We would have to make large radio changes to add another city agency. That would be a large task to learn and complete which none of us have time to do in the middle of a summer. We cannot effectively dispatch for 2 cities with only 1 person on duty. As is, we get overwhelmed by our own fire, ambulance, police phones at times. Adding a second city agency onto that just seems irresponsible in my mind. This is asking for us to fail and make possibly major, costly mistakes. The last budget meeting we had, the city didn't even budget for dispatch to be fully staffed. How are we compensating that? Will the budget be increased to cover all our salaries and training costs? Pay, if this change was to go through, would we get a pay raise to account for the extra workload we are taking on, or will we be expected to do even more work for the same amount of money? I understand this email may come off a little harsh or abrasive, and that is not directed at you at all. Thank you for calling to speak with me about it as soon as you were aware information was being spread on Facebook. I don't mean any of this to be harsh towards you. You have already started doing what you can to defend us, and I greatly appreciate that. The harshness is this was hid by others in charge that were aware of it and never said anything, did not consult you or Lieutenant O'Day, who are in the direct dispatch chain of command staff. I have quite a few more questions and concerns in my head, but I don't know how to word them yet, so I will continue to think over them for now. I'm sure you know where I stand on this issue from what we discussed and what I have said above. Thank you for being our fierce leader and voice when others will not let us have one. We all greatly appreciate you and everything you do for us. And just so we're clear, the supervisor she's emailing is sitting right there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Melissa Oakes. I am a 911 dispatcher for the city of Osage Beach. I am the only full-time mid-shift for the entire city of Osage Beach, meaning I am the only relief that the rest of my full-time 4 dispatchers feel. I am the only way that they can get out, take a breath, and go to the bathroom, eat, anything. I don't come in usually until 1 p.m. or 3 p.m. so that I can cover everything that happens at night. An example that I would like to present today that has absolutely stayed on my mind since it happened was a case that we worked in January. There was 2 of us on for the case. We should have had 3. The absolute insanity that occurred where I had to stay on the phone and help someone and save their life while my partner dispatched for 2 other police agencies to get our officers and Camden County there, to get multiple helicopters, all of our fire personnel, our ambulance, and other ambulances from other jurisdictions, and having to call each and every one of those. She needed help. But I wasn't going to let go of the phone. I was not going to hang up on the person that I was helping. And instead, we have understaffed, not great work conditions. I love where I work, and I love working here, and if I wanted to work for Lake Ozark, I would have gladly applied. But instead I worked for Osage Beach because I've heard nothing but great things about here, and I wanted to work here. I live 23 minutes away. I'm about to live an hour away, and I'm still willing to commit and travel to here every day, an hour extra here and an hour extra back, when I could easily apply for Pulaski County, which is paying just as much as we are. And I will consider that if we take on and overload our dispatch center with extra things that we are not prepared to take on. We just switched all of Osage Beach Fire to Moswin. Anyone who worked during that knows how insane dispatch was as we tried to fix all of the radios. Switching a fire department to Moswin was insanity. I can't imagine having to switch Lake Ozark to all of our channels, make sure that they know what our policies are and our procedures, and having to learn everything that we all learned. It took me 3.5 months to finish training. At over a year, I still don't have it all down. And I work so hard to still have it all down. And I still don't to this day, and I am so lucky that my leader has worked so hard to ensure that we have the best ways to learn. Make sure that we all have a day off, even if it means her working 7 days a week, which should not be happening. I should not have a person working 7 days a week, 12-hour days each time. It's not an 8-hour day where she gets to go home and rest. It's a 12-hour day, and she's switching her schedules back and forth. She'll have to come in at 7 a.m., then go to bed at 7. When she gets off, wake up, have to come in at, say if we have something horrible happen, which an example would be for my one dispatcher that's still in there right now. Okay. Everything went down one day, and she had to call Lexi in at 1 a.m. And Lexi had to work 12 hours the next day.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak?
Hello, I'm Stephen Wright. I'm a police officer for the city of Osage Beach. I share a lot of the exact same concerns as everyone has just spoken about. I know taking on another agency would be a lot of stress for our current dispatchers and their staffing level. I've worked for Camden County as a dispatcher for 3 years, where we dispatch for Camden County itself, the HH district, Camdenton City, Lynn Creek, and we had multiple fire jurisdictions that we were in charge of. My training for that was approximately 3 to 6 months, and that was just to learn everything from the city of Camdenton, city of Lynn Creek, the multiple fire agencies in the entire county of Camden County. With that being said, for those dispatchers that would come over from Lake Ozark, if they were to show up here, it's a lot. I know currently it's a lot for our dispatch whenever they're busy with Us running traffic stops, the fire calls, the fact they are certified for medical dispatch, it ties them up on the phone for medical calls until our ambulance can get there, which ties up everything else. Issues for our radios. Most one, it's great, it's clear, you can hear everybody, but it fails us most of the time. We have spots in the city where the radios don't get out at all. We have current radio issues as is. Dispatch's radios go down constantly. It's a safety issue. Granted, if they were to take on Lake Ozark officers and have their GPS systems, our GPS systems itself doesn't even work half the time. I know currently my patrol vehicle, I don't show up on the map at all. So they have no idea where I'm at when they send me to a call. Granted, I get there in a timely manner, but at the same time, I could be at Harley-Davidson handling a call, just clear, and they don't know where I'm at from there, and have a call all the way at like Big Thunder on the other side of the city. It's just absolutely insane. The fact, I greatly appreciate our current dispatch, considering they are on all the time and work days and nights back and forth. It's just, this merger shouldn't happen right now due to our staffing issues currently.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
All right. You ready?
Mr. Mayor, before you start the clock, I'm Mike Oakes with Osage Beach Fire Protection District. I'm deputy chief there, one of 3, so we're in charge of the shift when we're on duty. With me tonight is also our fire chief, Paul Berardi. Before I start, I do want to say that our district, we are in favor of a joint communication center. It's been a dream for years. Alderman Rucker can attest to that. It's just something we've talked about forever. But you can start my time now. I've been the liaison between your communication center and Osage Beach Fire for more than 4 years. While I'm not trained as a dispatcher myself, I'm very familiar with the workload your staff has upon them. If you aren't aware, you should be very proud of your communication center. It's well equipped and very well maintained. I say this because I've seen the workings of many centers throughout the state. Though your center is understaffed, I can also tell you that you employ the best dispatchers in our area. You may ask why I say this. You have a supervisor who truly cares about the job and her employees. She has a focus on detail that's imperative to our mission, and that's hard to find these days. Lexi sets expectations, expects them to be followed, and addresses those who cannot adhere to them. This is true for her employees and the vendors. The entire staff of your center is your biggest asset when it comes to communications. The idea of establishing some sort of joint communication center has been discussed for many years. Osage Beach Fire is all for this. Achieving this would definitely provide improved safety for our personnel, as well as providing better service to our community. Modern technology and the addition of the state Moslin system are making this more feasible. However, from a technical standpoint, and most importantly staffing, this project requires intensive planning by the communication staff, the agencies they dispatch, and the vendors. Unfortunately, as I stated, right now your biggest issue is lack of staffing, as you've heard over and over tonight. Many times the dispatch center has just one person on duty. In my opinion, the goal of joint communications cannot and should not move forward until there is significant staffing increase. Just earlier this week at 5:50 a.m. on Tuesday morning, I was on duty. During a thunderstorm, our fire department was dispatched to a residential fire. This required the lone dispatcher to take the 911 call and communicate with 5 agencies. About 35 minutes into this incident, Lake Ozark Fire also had a fire. That incident required resources from Osage Beach, and the lone dispatcher took care of that. Less than 15 minutes later, this same dispatcher took 911 calls for a motor vehicle accident and sent appropriate resources. That's 3 fire incidents working at the same time. And I'm not sure of the call load that Osage Beach Police had during the same period of time. That was probably significant, being that considering the weather. That same morning, sometime between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., Miller County Communications had a problem due to the storm. The lone dispatcher inherited the radio traffic from the working fire in Lake Ozark, as well as an additional motor vehicle accident they also had working. I ask you, the council, to take a serious look at the project and the proposal and ensure that good plans are in place prior to signing the agreements. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak?
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Berardi, Fire Chief at Osage Beach Fire Protection District. I won't reiterate what everybody has said here, but I do concur with that. But I also don't come here and to say fix it or don't do anything, but I'm willing to help Chief Davis through the process, and we'll step forward and help you through that. We understand that communications is a big part of any emergency service, and so Chief, I know I've offered to you before, and I will certainly step up and help us solve this problem together. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Harrison Fry, and I currently serve as a city administrator for the city of Lake Ozark. I'm also joined tonight by our own Chief Christensen and City Attorney Rohr. Mayor Newberry wants to send his regards tonight, is unable to attend as his youngest child is moving into college tomorrow morning, so they have some important family time ahead of them this evening. Wanted to take the opportunity at this podium to thank City Administrator Woods, Chief Davis, Lieutenant O'Day, and Attorney Bradbury for their work alongside us the last several months to prepare the item of discussion you have before you tonight. I am confident that you are all aware of how talented, informed, and thorough your team members are, but it has been an incredibly positive experience working alongside them the last few months, and we look forward to the prospect of building on that relationship in the future in an operational capacity. We look at this as an opportunity to further develop the association between the city of Osage Beach and the city of Lake Ozark, as we have done with sewer treatment services, emergency services, mutual aid agreements in the past, and to continue providing a high level of quality services for our constituents and visitors on both sides of the city limit line. I think we can all agree that these were all daunting tasks to accomplish years and decades ago with prior boards and staff members. However, with collaboration and cooperation, they have proven to be very successful for all entities in the time since. As you are aware, has been discussed at length tonight, the hiring pool for dispatch services tends to be rather shallow, with only a finite number of qualified and interested individuals in our area hoping to fulfill this important task. Further, the ongoing maintenance, care, and reinvestment to communication systems is no small feat to tackle financially. We hope that you can view this as a shared services opportunity where you retain oversight of day-to-day operations, while now having one other entity no longer competing with you to attract these team members, and the opportunity to continually reinvest in your own operation while taking on only an additional 14 to 18% in workload. The idea of a regional center, as was discussed, was the intent of this conversation when it began in mid-spring, and it was determined that this may be built through consolidation rather than formation. The environment that has been described tonight for your own dispatchers, where they are overworked at current capacity, very often unable to take care of their needs, very rarely have the opportunity to be home with their family and loved ones, exists in our own current environment at Lake Ozark Dispatch. We feel that consolidation through acquisition is something that can solve these problems. I trust that your city staff tonight will advise you of their ongoing conversations and plans to tackle this. But wanted to share that if you find it necessary, myself, Chief Christensen, Attorney Rohr will be available throughout the night to answer questions you may have on the proposed agreement and provide a response to our board based on tonight's discussion. Thank you very much. I would also like to clear the air up on one item. There has been no conversation with our Board of Aldermen through our budget process, et cetera, regarding a $22 an hour pay rate increase to Lake Ozark PD as a result of this. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, would anybody else like to speak? All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Has the board had a chance to look at the minutes and the bills list from our meeting July 20th, 2023 and the August 3rd bills list? If there's no comments or questions, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve as corrections were sent into the clerk.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is approved. We have no unfinished business tonight. All right, we have 3 items under new business. We have 1 bill, 2 discussion. First, we have Bill 23-63. It's an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 625, Message Establishment, Article Section 625.010, Definitions, 625.030, Rules Authorized, 625.040, Inspections, 625.050, Facilities Necessary, 625.060, General Operating Requirements, 625.080, Applications, 625.090, Notice of Hearing, 625.100, Issuance, 625.120, Revocation of Suspension, 625.130, Transfer, 625.140, Required, 625.150, Application. Whew. Tara, Tara, are you taking this one?
Just call me Kevin.
All right. Are you taking this one?
I am, thank you,
Okay.
Mayor, Board of Aldermen. A few months ago, the board tasked the staff with going through their ordinances and trying to clean up some ordinances that we didn't use or that were outdated. This was one that caught my attention by a massage applicant that came in and told me that some of the verbiage that we were using, such as masseuse or masseuse parlor or whatever, was old school, and the state doesn't use that anymore, and it referenced some illicit activity. So we went and changed. I worked with building official Ron and police chief Davis, and we got some of the codes updated in here, and I went in and changed all of the police chief's verbiage in there. It's just a basic ordinance cleanup is what it is. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer it.
All right, comments or questions from the board? Seeing, yes, Bob?
I was just going to state
Alderman
that, Bob.
Sorry?
It appears that the majority of these changes are in title only, from chief of police, police chief.
A lot of them are, yeah, and then take the masseuse out of there and
see
just
a lot
make a
of that.
massage therapist, yep.
So just semantics.
All right.
Cleanup.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Osteen, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, no one's approved, motion carried. All right, now we're moving on to discussions, communication service contract regarding dispatch services for Lake of the Ozarks. Chief Davis, please.
Mayor and members of the board, what you have in front of you is a proposed agreement between the City of Lake Ozark and the City of Osage Beach for us to provide police department dispatching services. To give you a little background on this topic, earlier this year I was approached by Lake Ozark and another local agency and asked if we would be interested in providing dispatch services for their agencies. As most of you know, we've been battling the staffing shortage for a long time. It's a nationwide issue amongst communication centers. The merger discussions are something that come up every so often. It makes sense to have a consolidated dispatch center here in the Lake area instead of multiple centers with everyone duplicating services. We do have a great professional team and the technology in place to make this happen, but we did not, or still don't, have the staffing to do it currently, and that was initially mentioned to the group. Staffing was one of Lake Ozark's top concerns as well, as they were and are still in a critical staffing level, and the thought was that we could combine our staffs instead of trying to draw from the same pool, small pool of applicants, along with all the other costs associated with operating 2 dispatch centers. Lake Ozark felt strongly that their staff would be open to seeing what Osage Beach had to offer, and we felt this could be a good way to address the staffing challenges that both our departments are currently facing. In the past, dispatching fees have always been the factor that seemed to shut down the conversations regarding us providing services to other police agencies. We gathered information from both agencies as well as ours, such as calls for service, types of call, categories, etc., and worked with the city administrator to reach a cost estimate for providing the dispatching services. We then presented the numbers to both agencies, and the other agency advised that it was cost prohibitive at the time, but Lake Ozark chose to proceed. The entire time, we still continued to try and recruit and hire dispatchers. However, this met with negative results. Even raising our starting salary to $18 an hour didn't help. We received applications, however, applicants are not returning calls to schedule testing and interviews. They don't show up for interviews and testing.
they failed a test or interview, can't pass a background or pre-employment drug test, etc. I think we even had one that passed everything and didn't even show up for the first day that they were scheduled, and we never heard back from them. We've had some that just couldn't handle the stress or multitasking of the job and didn't make it through training. Like I mentioned earlier, this project has been being worked on for a few months. It was kept low-key primarily due to Lake Ozark wanting time to formulate a severance plan and discuss the merger with their staff so they would not have everyone just up and leave. Lake Ozark met with their staff and advised them of the proposed merger on July 21st, I believe. It was then taken to the board on July 25th, still using September 1st as a date, which was discussed as a target date when we started the discussions. Unfortunately, we have not been able to hire additional staff and currently, like Lexi had mentioned, have one dispatcher out on medical leave. This leaves us with a staff of 4 full-time and 1 part-time dispatcher, including their supervisor, who is currently our only trainer. We have had 2 offer letters go out, however, one was rescinded after pre-employment drug screening, and the other has not made contact with us as of today, unless Lexi has heard something. While we had hoped to be able to make this move sooner, the reality of it is, for the safety of the community and staff of both cities, we can't give an exact date and time that we can make the switch and have a full staff, or close to what we need. After discussions with Lieutenant O'Day, we feel that we need a minimum of 8 trained dispatchers to make this happen, fully trained, not just bringing over. There are also logistical issues that need to be addressed prior to the go date, which realistically is probably at least 90 days out because of vendor schedules, et cetera. We discussed this with Chief Christensen earlier this week. If the board consents, we will move forward with the logistic and technical side of the things and continue to recruit and train staff, including Lake Ozark's current staff if they are interested in becoming Osage Beach employees. This agreement's always been contingent upon the Osage Beach having or hiring a sufficient number of dispatchers as addressed in Section 6 of the agreement that Cole put together. This is similar to the agreement with School of the Osage with the second SRO. When you guys approved it, we were advised we needed to fill all our road positions and after that, we could hire the SRO and send them out to the school. So that's what I have.
All right. Well, before we move on to discussion from the board, I'm going to start. And I might be a little long-winded. I know we had a short agenda, and sorry, Tara. But I'm going to go, and sometimes I start talking, I don't know really what I'm going to say. But, and I too am for a joint communication center someday. And I too would be in favor of taking on Lake Ozark someday. But I just kind of want to give you a brief overview. I typed this up right before I came here. I normally don't type stuff out, but I wanted to hit everything. But a couple of weeks ago, I did have an Osage Beach police officer come to my office and ask to talk to me. And he explained, that he wanted to talk about the possible merger. And I said, what merger are you talking about? And he said, well, the one with the 911 dispatch. And I said, well, I know we talked about it a little bit at our planning session, but tell me more. So he goes on to tell me the details of this plan that I didn't know about. And so I said, well, let's certainly investigate this. And then it came up at the Lake Ozark City Council meeting. In the overview, it stated that this was an agreement that was being reviewed by the City of Osage Beach on a similar timeline, and should both parties agree, then actual transfer of service will occur on September 1st. And I was even more taken back about that because, again, I didn't know the details at all and that it went down this far. And I did go visit Alderman Ross. I thought at his home and had a long conversation about this because I was surprised. I don't want to speak for him. I think he was surprised as well. July 26, an article came out in KRMS Radio. It says dispatch operations for the City of Lake Ozark could be signing off soon and absorbed by Osage Beach. Okay, I'm reading this in the paper, and again, you can't believe everything you read in the paper, but there it was. Today's KRMS news article stated, Board of Aldermen meeting could complete the transfer of 911 services from LOPD to OBPD. Well, after last Friday's meeting, and we can't do anything, because as of last Friday's meeting, I did contact Gina Woods, and I asked that this be switched from a first reading to a discussion item. Had that been on the agenda as a first reading, I don't know that we would have gotten a anybody that would have said, no, I'll motion to approve or go on, it might have been killed on the table. I thought a discussion item was necessary because I do think that those in the trenches, the dispatchers, the 911 operators, the police out on the street are the ones we should be talking about before we write an agreement. And I disagree that this is similar to an SRO officer, because you're talking about one officer to be hired later when we are fully staffed here. I did a lot of investigating over the last 2 weeks, and I appreciate the police officers I talked to, the people from dispatch I talked to the chief of police, I've talked to Gina and Cole, and today I called Mayor Newberry, and him and I get along real well, and I just said, hey, I just wanted to give you the courtesy to let you know it's on our agenda tonight, and not only am I going to not talk in favor of this, I'm going to talk against it, and here's why. I think as good as this could be, we need to clean our house first. If it was written in here somewhere that said, once we are fully staffed and once we are fully trained, then this sounds like a great idea. And maybe it's a first step to the Joint Communication Center. Maybe it is. But I think it's an awakening, and there's a lot of the things I was going to say, the officers and the dispatch people said, so I'm not going to go down to the 911, the loggers, all that sort of stuff. So I truly appreciate you bringing it to light to the board tonight, because there's things that I've been made aware of over the last couple of weeks, and I think our priority now is, as we can see, as we can hear, we need to figure out a way to make our city whole when it comes to 911, dispatch, and police. And until we do that, if it comes down to a first reading, second reading, doesn't get to me till 3 to 3. I just wanted you to know what I found over the last couple of weeks, and that's my viewpoint. So with that being said, comments or questions from the board?
Right here.
Alderman Osteen.
Obviously. All right, a few things. First of all, I would like to recognize all of the comments we received from our current staffing from the call center, the police force, and the fire department. That is the reason why this is a discussion item, because we are looking for your input to decide if and how we want to move forward with this proposed merger. One of the things that, once again, I wanted to reiterate that the discussion is just that. It's just a discussion. Nothing has been agreed upon behind closed doors. There's been no secret handshake agreements between us and the city of Lake Ozark. This is just, once again, one of the first times I've actually even talked about it to anybody else on this board. So I just want to waylay any fears that this is a done deal, because no, this is a discussion item. This just to get the ball rolling. The next item I want to bring up again, because I'm trying to be real quick here, is there were some comments made regarding staffing levels. And I want to reiterate that this whole service agreement basically is contingent verbatim on agreement states there shall be sufficient dispatchers hired, which means I don't know the time frame, but I'm assuming that means we need to get our staffing at full level before this service agreement would go into effect. I could be wrong with that statement, but that's how I'm interpreting this, because that is written verbatim into the service agreement. Because of that, then I don't see that there's any kind of definitive start date. We can agree to this agreement, but how I'm reading this is, okay, yes, this will go into effect once we're at full staffing levels. I don't know if anybody else can give me any otherwise information, but that's how I'm reading this. So even if we were to agree on this sometime in the near future, and I'm on board for this sooner rather than later, as opposed to the mayor, but once again, I have the same concerns you do, and it's staffing. I do like the idea, though, of, once again, agreeing to it now and saying, but this will not go into effect until we got a full house, until we have our staff full and ready to go. Then we commit to training and bringing on more individuals. Now, based on what I'm reading here in percentage-wise as far as new employees, with the increased call level at 14 to 18%, I've heard two different numbers, really that would only warrant 2 more staff members based on our current staffing and call levels. I think I'm correct with that. Actually, not even quite 2.
Well, I can account for all the cost accounting because that was my role. The legal aspect was Cole's role, but Lieutenant O'Day and Todd, their task was figure out based on the resources what that level is.
Okay.
So.
And I was just doing straight percentages on calls, current required recommended staffing levels based on the study we had in 2019, and then adding in a certain percentage for additional calls, therefore translating that into additional employees. But anyway, once again, we hear what you're saying, or at least I do. I'm all for this, but I'm not going to pull the trigger or vote in favor of this until, once again, everyone's on board that this does not go into effect until we are ready to go on our end with our staff.
And to answer your question, so I wrote the agreement, and that was at Chief's request. It was something we discussed, because the way this originally came to us was, this is a way to, we looked at it as a way to acquire more staffing to help the call center. And so if you look at paragraph 3A1, there's a blank for the start date because we didn't know when that would be. And that's how it was drafted as just like you said, we don't know when it's going to begin. And then in paragraph 6, we made it contingent on hiring additional staff, and that is at ultimately our city's discretion when we feel we are staffed enough to provide the services contemplated in this agreement.
Yeah.
So that's how I wrote it that way at Chief's request for that reason.
Yeah, so that's the only comments I had. I do know from the mayor of the City of Lake Ozark, I believe this is on their agenda for their board meeting on Tuesday as a discussion item again.
It's already passed first reading.
It's already passed first reading? Okay, so I'm not sure.
They took the first step. I know Harrison's in the audience, and whether or not they do a second immediately or hold it, it's like any other, that's their discretion.
But I would recommend we have representation.
Until both sides.
I would recommend we have representation at their next meeting to waylay our concerns about them trying to put a definitive date for when this agreement would go into effect.
Well, they cannot move forward, and it's
I know,
contingent upon
joint,
us.
but I'm
Yeah.
concerned that they've got verbiage out there stating effective this date.
I would let Harrison, if you want to direct, he's here, he could
I know.
answer for his board, if you want an immediate answer. I didn't know if it was rhetorical.
I don't need an immediate
or-
answer. I'm just throwing that out there as a
Okay.
comment. That's all I have.
I want to address one thing. Sorry if I jump in here again, but I guess that's one of the benefits of being mayor, right? The only thing I will say, and I've had this conversation too, is when it does say that the agreement shall be contingent upon Osage Beach hiring sufficient dispatchers, my question is, who decides that? Is it me? Is it our board? Is it if you were to put in here, until we are fully staffed and trained, I'd be okay with this. But if you say our discretion may be 6 one day, 8 one day, I might have a different opinion than somebody else. So if we could be more definite, say fully trained and staffed, then a whole different ballgame in my opinion. Any other comments or
Can be
questions?
motivated.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Mr.
Alderman
Mayor,
Hoffman.
I want to thank everyone who came out tonight. I could definitely feel the passion coming from you guys, and I appreciate it. I do agree with Alderman Osteen that this is a discussion topic. I do find it odd that at the strategic planning meeting, this was something that was brought up and glazed over, and it was something that was in the initial thought process is kind of the way I took it. And then really, we didn't find out anything about this until a week ago. And I don't know if that's bad communication between us and Lake Ozark, but it caught me a little off guard, and it clearly caught them off guard. And I think we need to take a step back completely on this and really think about what we're doing. Obviously, everyone seems to think that this is a good idea at some point, but I don't see how that some point is now.
And just a clarification, because it was up for first reading initially, so their concerns were valid because it was up for first reading, and then we requested it, well, I'd requested it be changed to discussion.
And I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, but at the strategic planning meeting, we were talking about this in hopes of helping our staff. This was an avenue to bring in more people. We're going to take on more calls, but we're going to bring in more staff. They would have more to work with, and it sounds like the exact opposite is happening to me.
I think it was brought up that this was an idea someday, has been talked about for years, but I don't know that we knew it was this far down the.
Do we even know if the dispatchers from Lake Ozark are definitely moving over here? If we were to do this?
Lexi, if you have some insight, please talk on the microphone though so the people at home can hear.
There's no
Well, she's walking up there. We've only talked to one.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We've talked to one of their dispatchers Tuesday night, and that's the only one we've made contact with, and it's a maybe.
I've heard that they're not interested, and one of them who presented herself at the Lake Ozark meeting when they passed the first reading, she had initially applied for us in February and then stopped responding. So she's one of those that has put in an application and then stopped responding. We wouldn't even consider hiring someone like that Because if you're like that before getting hired, how are you going to be after? We have already gone through this enough to know that if you cease communication with us, you're not going to be a good employee once you're here. That leaves two, which, again, they are going to come here. If they decide to come here, our training process is at minimum 3 months, with one person currently training. The September 1st date is right around the corner.
That date seems ridiculous to me with Bike Fest coming on. I mean, that's
That's off the table.
okay.
And right before Bike Fest, which we've had, to give you, I didn't mention the calls previously, the one that Melissa spoke of is a shooting, the shooting that we had on Sunset. Since then, I mean, we've had drownings, I was by myself when I handled the plane crash. Laura was by herself when she handled the 4 people clinging onto the boat that were about to drown. Most of these, we can try to plan to have someone on a mid-shift, but most of it, ideally or coincidentally enough, comes in when one person is by themselves.
So we might not get any of their people, and even if we do, some of them might not even qualify.
And now we're losing some of ours because of it.
So while you're here, let me ask you one kind of blatant question.
Okay.
How do we get more dispatchers? In your opinion, how do we get more?
So I've tried, together with Lieutenant O'Day, I'm very transparent with my staff. This was kind of, it was out of my control. It wasn't kind of. I was kept in the dark purposely because I would have voiced my opinion, because I am the type of person that if you want to lead, what I see here in this building are managers. Managers do not encourage their people to thrive. They don't want to hear their voice. I lead the same way that I do at home, by example. I would never ask of them what I wouldn't do myself.
Well, but this is an open discussion. You're here doing it now. I mean,
Yes,
this
now.
is kind of how it works.
So to fix it, I implemented a 911 observation program, which I get together with LCTC law enforcement students to get them to come in to sit a few hours so they can see what a day in the life of a dispatcher is. Hasn't been very successful, especially when I have some people that say, why would I come and work here? And when I can get that at my summer job and don't have the liability, I can go work at Target, get paid the same amount of money without the liability. Young people aren't going to necessarily look at the benefits. I look at my 401, 457. I actually like what we have because it's comparable to a higher tier of loggers. Some people prefer loggers. Me, I've already been here 13 years, so it's kind of late in the game to switch over possibly. I've even gone to hiring fairs. That doesn't really bring anything about. The thing is that with dispatch, and you're all more than welcome to come and sit with me at some point, and I say with me because I don't like to put that stress on another dispatcher. But you're more than welcome to come and sit with me so I can explain to you and go through what it requires or what it's like.
Okay.
So then that way you have a little bit of an idea, because we have had people, like Chief Davis mentioned, that they will come in and they're hired, but once they start doing the job and they see that they have to do lateral dispatching, which is what our center does, meaning that we operate anything and everything. So that way if someone steps out of the room, you can handle things on your own, because it does require a lot of multitasking. It requires split your listening skills. So again, I invite for you to come and see, but I really don't have a clear answer as to how to get more people when we have already been doing it and it hasn't been successful.
Well, and tonight is about discussion item on the merger, and so this is certainly a path we need to go down, and direction to the staff how to do that. But
Agreed, Mr. Mayor.
yeah. Anybody have any more questions for Lexi while she's up here? All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board? Alderman Rucker.
Yes. Sit back, take a breath. I have a lot. First of all, I do always speak a lot, and this subject is very passionate to me for a lot of reasons. First of all, just a little history. I'm sure not everybody does know, but I have 45 years in the fire service. I've been out on in the late hours of the morning, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, way west in St. Louis County. Very difficult for communications, dealing with a gunshot situation waiting for the police to get there so that we can deal with it with the ambulance, and know how valuable it is to have that person on the other end of the line on your radio that knows what they're doing. So I understand that. I've been in situations where I've had people not to be so competent on the other end, and an emergency situation can go really bad really fast. With that being said, I am in favor of this situation, of us moving forward. I came down here as fire chief in Osage Beach back in '96. That was one of the many items that I had as I moved into that department to see what we could do to improve the organization of the fire service. And that was to create a better communication system, a joint communication system. I was fortunate that I came from the metropolitan St. Louis area where we had a 911 center. My father, when he was fire chief, helped create the one that we had up in the metropolitan, or in West St. Louis County. Just a little bit of history going back, I can remember when I was 7 and 8 years old and the fire phone would ring, which was in my mom and dad's bedroom, which rang in another person's bedroom in another part of town, and my mom a lot of times would dispatch. That's how much I am familiar with what dispatching has been and can come from. Second of all, or third of all, or where we're at, I want to take and defend the staff. I understand that maybe you feel that you weren't involved in the conversations of what was going on. I understand some of the board members and the mayor's upset that they didn't think they were brought into the loop of this thing. Well, you know what? You didn't open your ears up, because I made it real clear that this was an option that I had discussed with Chief Davis, and I said that at our strategic meeting. Now, I say a lot, so maybe you didn't hear what I was saying because I'd been talking too much. But I made that comment that I had specifically, because I spoke to Chief Davis about 6-8 months ago and said, hey, you know, think outside the box. What about that, this? He said, we're already working on that. And I said, well, great. I'm glad to hear that. I think it was earlier this year is when it was. So this has been going on. So if some of the people are not aware of it, I have been aware of it and know what was going on. And the fact that it was kept low key, especially when you started to get involved with another agency that you're taking over and the loss of their staff, there had to be a lot of ducks put in a row so that staff down there knew that they were protected. So I think that I applaud our staff for putting this together. Now, with that being said, they have identified some of the concerns that were brought up here. If you read the contract, which I have read the contract, it says they have to be fully staffed. Now, it doesn't say exactly fully staffed. It says there has to be sufficient staff. What's sufficient staff? That's what we have a supervisor in charge of that dispatch center. That's where we would lean upon the chief of police to tell us that. Now, is good enough to me. If we want to put numbers in there, okay, but in order to move forward, I say we do that. We figure out how to move forward in it. The best thing for us to do, and this is something that I brought up, and I'll put it right out on the table. The best thing we can have for this area is every dispatch center we have right now, which is Lake Ozark, Osage Beach, Camden County, Miller County, Eldon. Best thing that can happen is we create a joint communication system for this whole area. Let me tell you one of the biggest stumbling blocks, money, because it needs money to do it right. And I'm almost positive, based on the information I did a number of years ago, you're talking a 10-cent assessed valuation on property tax. 10 cents. Okay, your fire districts are getting 60 or 70 cents or so, but anyway, 10 cents would be the minimum to make that happen. They need to be their own autonomy. That's what you want. If we're going to do this thing right, that's what we need to do it right and create a communication center. This is a step, though. This is a step to move forward to it. And if we can't move forward, if we don't see that we feel that this is the way that we can do this, then I think what we ought to do is get out of the business of dispatch. We're either going to have to go big or get out. We can't be where we're at like now. We've rode this horse too long. We either got to get big or get out. And in order to get big, this is an opportunity. This is a way. Let me tell you about joining forces. Went through that process. it is very difficult to take a communications center and add another communications center when you are fully staffed. So you say this is the wrong time. It's the right time because we can take on those personnel. Now, if those personnel don't want to come on, then, okay, we've got to find them elsewhere, or we can't proceed with the agreement. But this is the time when we are at our opportunity. Think of it if we were fully staffed. How would you like to be a Lake Ozark dispatcher saying, oh, guess what? We're going to merge with Osage Beach and none of you got a job. That's not a good way to do it. That's not a good way to treat your employees, because I'm sure the Osage Beach employees wouldn't like this board to do the same to them. So it's the wrong time? No, this is the right time to move forward. We have an opportunity here, and we have an opportunity to do it right, and we have an opportunity to expand. Now, will we be able to do that by September 1? No, somebody pulled that date out of their hat, because that is not a good date. I mean, it's just not realistic. What is a good date? It says what a good date is. A good date is when we are staffed, adequately staffed. Do we want to take the word adequately staffed and tune it up a little bit more? I don't have a problem with that. But I think Chief Davis already did that. He already told us what him and Lieutenant O'Dea felt was an adequate staff number. He just gave that in his report. I think he said 8. Okay, that's what I thought I wrote down. So they've identified what they believe is adequate. So we can move forward. There are so many positives on why this should move forward. Now, is it going to be a complete up and running and a done deal in 2, 3, 4 months? It would be great. I don't know that that's realistic. But if we don't have a plan, then we're never going to get there. If we're going to keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, then we're not going to get there. So we need to develop a plan, and that's what was done earlier with the dispatch or the agencies that got together all around the table. They all sat down and said, hey, what's what? Here's what we want to do. And unfortunately, there's a number of them most of them except for one that stepped up. Lake Ozark stepped up and said, yeah, we're ready to go. So I say we should be ready to go, and we need to move forward. And we need to move forward in a positive way, and we need to put some of these things together. Why are we in the situation we're in? Lexi tried to identify why we can't hire. There's 100 million people out there trying to answer that same question that you asked her. Nobody can figure it out. Our HR person here is saying, yep. You know, I've been fortunate about 2.5 years ago to retire and travel. You know what? You see all across America? Help wanted, help wanted, help wanted. That's what you see all across America. They don't advertise their hamburgers and their furniture on sale at their stores. In the window in that prime advertising space, it's help wanted. So we're in the same boat as everybody else is, and we have to figure out how to get out of that situation. And that's what I challenged Chief Davis with, and that's what this is. This is an opportunity or a way to get out of it, to try to bring in some more workforces, try to not have them, both Lake Ozark and us, and other agencies all trying to hire from the same pool. If it was just us or just one center that was down here hiring from that pool. So there is a lot of reasons why we need to move forward. And the reasons that you have that are issues we have, it's really only one. It's just staffing. And I don't mean that's lightly, but it's one issue. It's an important issue. It's a very, very important issue. And it's one that has to be identified. And it's the hardest one probably to take care of. But we need a plan. I wrote two pages of notes, and I think I pretty well summed them up in that there. And I say I appreciate, Chief, you're offering your help to help pull this thing together. It's going to take a lot of that work. Again, I remember back in the day, back in the metropolitan St. Louis area, when 8 fire departments came together to create a joint communication center, and I was on the outside looking in because I was too young, but I remember a lot of the things that went on to do that, and it can be done. but it's going to take some effort. And the other thing is it's going to take some funds, and it's going to take some time. But I think we need to move forward with it, and we need to set the parameters, and I fully support that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Yes.
Alderman Schuman.
So thank you again to everybody who spoke. I think this was a good idea to have on our agenda as a discussion item, to hear everybody's concerns, to hear the people who are actually working in these departments and understanding what additional training and things that they would need. Yet again, like we were talking about, there, like somebody mentioned, having to learn the whole Lake Ozark area, that would be important. But September 1st, like we all said, would not be something, we would not throw you into just say, hey, good luck with that. But to be able to have somebody, to be able to make the discussions go on and set this up for the future, it is important to find out this information, whether it is something that we would be interested in or not, and to get all of the information from you guys, from them, and be able to set it up. To be able to move forward with a plan like this, there are several stages, and this is just the first stage of this. So I do kind of reiterate, I think this is a great idea eventually, but right now I wouldn't support putting extra stressors on our current and the current staffing we have, which is, like they said, why we wrote it into the contract to have the staffing up at a better level first.
All right. Alderman Hoffman.
I have one question. I'm not even sure who to pose it to. What is Lake Ozark's role in this? Is their role, okay, you guys take it over and hopefully you can hire our people and here's a check?
What do you mean?
Is that we're taking on, we got to find all these employees, obviously our staff, or bring everything under our umbrella, and Lake Ozark is doing what?
We provide the service the same way as we do with the fire.
All right, we've got Gina here to explain.
Well, Kevin reads my mind, I think, most of the time. We already have a service contract with the OB Fire District, so ultimately the goal is it's us providing a service like we do the OB Fire District. Now, there's joint discussions and problems, there's, in fact, a whole section. I don't have the contract in front of me, Cole, but in the end, it's just like we provide the service with fire. We are the employer, but information is shared, but does that make sense?
Was that contract somewhere and I missed it?
It's in your packet.
Okay.
I just didn't see that part, I guess.
Page 32.
I believe it states once we're up to sufficiently staffed, it would be $10,000 a month. Throughout the 2023, it would be $10,000 per month, and then in 2024, paid quarterly, I believe is how it reads. And that does not stipulate how we get the staff, just that we would try to hire them.
Okay. That was the figure, actually, that Alderman Ross and I had discussed.
Yeah,
but-
that's the payment, but as far as the service, we are now the provider of a service, a
Okay.
vendor to them.
Where'd that figure come from?
I did the cost accounting on that based on the same calculation we go through with the OB Fire District and shared resources and how much of the center they're using up of our resource. Along with a capital plan, we budget out an estimate of a 5-year capital plan, so that dollar amount or our, I guess, cost for all our services includes some expectation of forecast of what we will reinvest in our system.
She actually sent that out to Richard, and Alderman Ross forwarded it during the meeting about 20.
It was just
25,
like the
30
first
minutes
full
ago.
bullet
So
points.
It's in your email now.
Okay.
But it's the same methodology or philosophy we use on how to charge the OB Fire Protection District.
Alderman Rucker.
I know there's been some discussion or comments about what the additional cost does. There really will be little to none because we need to be fully staffed. So what the chief has said is that, they're saying at least 8 right now. We are budgeted for 11. So if we are fully staffed, whether we are dispatching for Lake Ozark Fire, Lake Ozark Police or not, we're still going to be paying the same amount of money, or we're still going to have the same amount in our budget. So the Lake Ozark Police is not going to add more expense to us, or a little expense.
I just wondered where I'd seen the figure, I just didn't know if it came out of thin air, if it was just percentages, if it was, this is what it costed to get 3 people moved over there. Just wasn't sure where that figure comes from.
Alderman Hoffman, I'll be glad to speak with you offline on all the cost accounting figures behind the scenes. I'll be glad to
Sounds
share that
good.
with you.
Alderman Rucker.
One thing I just thought about, a question I had is, hopefully as we move forward in this process, one of the things I would challenge Chief Davis with, and then you would have to come back with Gina, is that what is your feeling of if we are fully staffed that we can handle? In other words, at what point do we say, okay, we can handle this agency, but if we're going to add another agency, then we're going to need more staffing. As we would hopefully move this thing forward, and because I would love to see this to be a domino effect to where, you know, we would get more and more agencies that would realize that this is the thing we need to do. But we have to be cautious on that, especially since I know you had discussion with a number of agencies. If all of a sudden they would all come in and say, yeah, we want to go, wait a second here, what's our staffing? What can we handle if we were at full staff?
Okay. We'll work on that.
Any other comments or questions? Alderman Rose.
Well, not to be redundant, but again, thank you all for coming and expressing your views. I truly appreciate it, and I truly admire our dispatchers that are so dedicated to our city. So they need more people, but yet they're there to help with everyone, and thank you. I am in favor of merging, but not now, as we've just discussed. I'd like to see a further detailed financial spreadsheet of what it's going to cost us, even though you're throwing numbers out. But, you know, for the year, what we're looking at, yes, we need definitely to staff our own people. We need training people before we can even take on any more responsibility, as we've already reiterated. But I think it's a good move, as Alderman Rucker commented. We just can't do it now. And until we can finally feel comfortable of being staffed and being ready to take on more responsibility, then I say, go, let's do it. Thank you.
Alderman Osteen.
I've got one more comment. It's a request. Is anybody familiar with their communication center equipment? Because according to the contract, basically, they will power down, but we will still maintain that equipment for a backup or for emergency services. But just like all equipment, they take upgrades, they take costs. I'm just curious if anybody's even familiar with what type of system they're currently using and how that's compatible or how that relates to ours.
Lake Ozark will keep maintenance of their own equipment, but theirs is very, I don't know what, it's very simple compared to what we have. It's basically 2 mobile radios, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief.
Well, it's
Two mobile.
It's a call center, it's not a 911.
Right, yeah. It's 2, we could do radio traffic, and that's basically it, radio and some mules traffic.
I'm just curious.
It's that simple.
I'm curious if there's any additional costs, but once again, with this merger, as far as how it relates to their equipment in that facility.
Mm-hmm.
And under the agreement, their equipment is still their responsibility, so they're gonna basically mothball it and maintain it at their expense. It's at their city hall or at their police department, and then we're responsible for ours.
Okay, thank you.
I was gonna say the.
Is it Melissa?
Yes, sir.
All right.
May I clarify on the date, as there seems to be a lot of.
Do you mind coming up to the microphone so people at home can hear, please?
So to clarify on the September 1st date, because I've seen a lot of board members bring it up on they don't know where it came from. I learned it on the September 1st date from a Lake Ozark dispatcher. She was told they had 6 weeks. They either chose to interview here and come here, or they had 6 weeks to take a severance package and call it good, and they said that 6 weeks date was September 1st. That was from a Lake Ozark dispatcher. She said that was given. Whether or not that date is actually true, this is what she has told one of us, that she had September 1st and that they were going to move at that point. So I don't know if she is told that wrongly or if she learned that from somewhere else, but that is what we were told that she knew was September 1st, they had either interview here or take a severance package from Lake Ozark.
Well, and I can clarify that a little bit too, because it was on the 7/25/23 Lake Ozark agenda item. Under additional steps needed, this agreement is being reviewed by the City of Osage Beach on a similar timeline to our meeting schedule. Should both parties agree, agreement, the actual transfer of services will occur on September 1. So it was nothing definite, but it was on their agenda item. So, so that's where that date came from.
The September, in discussions, the September 1st date was a date that we would have liked a shot for originally. However, we thought we'd have a few months to hire some people, train a few. That didn't come to fruition. So
I just don't know why they didn't take it out.
Well, and I think everybody agrees, the Joint Communication Center is a great idea, and everybody agrees about moving forward if everything's adequate. My personal opinion is too, if we currently say full staff is 11, then we should mandate full staff. If for whatever reason we say we only need a staff of 8, then let's talk about changing our full staff to 8. But if we have a full staff of 11, if I'm understanding right, you have 4 shifts, 2 per shift, supervisor and lead. 11's about what we need. And if we're going to take on another one, we're going to need 12, 13, 14, I don't know. But I don't like written into the contract up to somebody's discretion. If we put in their full staff, I think that's 11 is 11, that's full staff.
I concur, Mr. Mayor.
I'll just add that I wrote the contract and we didn't put a date in it because we knew it was flexible. I mean, we knew it was dependent on so many things. So, I mean, if you look at it's on page 33 of the packet, there's a beginning blank 1/2023. And,
Right.
And if that September 1 didn't come from us.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we all agree with the same premise. Maybe the way we got there is wrong, but today is a discussion item. And so I think Chief Davis now needs suggestions. He received some from us, some from them out there. And Alderman Osteen?
I do not concur with the full staff statement. I think when it comes to staffing, we should leave it at the discretion of Chief Davis and the head of that department as far as what they think would be the adequate staffing amount to take on this merger.
Well, could they?
We're not the ones doing the job. We're not the ones on the firing line. Ideally, yes, 11 people plus apparently, well, in my head, 2 more to take on this merger. But if they're stating perhaps 8, maybe that's the number they've already discussed. I don't know. Lexi, I'm sorry.
That's a number that Lieutenant O'Day and I have discussed.
Okay.
Again, to reiterate, I was not involved in any of this.
Sure.
The 8 people that they decided, it's on them, yet they have never sat in the seat of a dispatcher. No attempt has been made to even learn what we do. They go in there and they can stare at me while I'm taking a call. It's not like they can sit in there and do it. I totally agree with the mayor as to, yes, we should be fully staffed at 11, because you also have to take into consideration vacation time. We're entitled to vacation time. We're entitled to personal days. If someone is sick, I've had to literally be, and not because anyone is forcing me, it has to do with my work ethic. And unfortunately, what's going on right now is making me consider looking for another job. I have never done that before. When I had the CSC position, the Communication Services Coordinator position, from 2017 to 2019, the same thing was done to me. The same thing that was done to Lake Ozark dispatchers, to where behind the scene, things were being worked on to eliminate the position. I wasn't told or given a letter until I came back from vacation, and I was told, take a severance package or go back into dispatch if that's what you please. I decided to go back into dispatch because I was already working in there part-time from the years that I was out, because they were also short-staffed, and because I love helping people. It's in my nature. But I have lost faith in my admin, because something so big that affects us so much was not even brought to me as the 911 supervisor. I was not even considered in this. Decisions were made by people that don't even sit in there and don't know how to do the job. And for the chief of police from Lake Ozark, when I spoke at their meeting, because their dispatcher was given an opportunity to speak, so I said,
Okay,
I'll speak as
I'm
well.
sorry, I am going to shut it down now.
No, it's
Now's not
okay.
the time to throw, but we understand your passion and we appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, any other comments or questions from the board?
Well, just to reiterate, or back to Alderman Osteen, I don't disagree with you. I think that number needs to come from them, but I think it needs to be an exact number. Like, what if that we have to get a new employee? What if she decides to leave and a new employee comes in and they have a different opinion on what that number is? So I just think that number needs from them to be defined. That was kind of my point.
Well, maybe that's our opportunity to include them in this decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Alexi, maybe that's my challenge to you is put it in writing. Send us something that says, here's what I consider is adequate staffing. Here's what I think this is going to take as far as employees. If we do this merger, we can crunch the numbers and come up with 1.7 more employees, but you are on the front line. Maybe you're going to say, that's going to be at least 3. You know it, get it in writing so it's something we can look at and consider some more. Sorry, not to put you on the spot, but trying to involve you in this discussion.
That's good.
More.
Alderman Rucker.
First of all, Chief Davis is the person that we talk to and answer to. We don't direct other staff on things to do. I think that's inappropriate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's first thing. Second thing is.
I don't think she would have taken, I don't believe she was taking that as me being inconsiderate. I think she was appreciating that I wanted to get her more adequately involved in this, but I understand you're trying to do chain of command.
Second of all.
But apparently the chain of command has failed in trying to include the staffing for that department in this decision.
Second of all, the fact that Chief Davis and Lieutenant O'Day has provided information of what they consider to be adequate staffing, that's what we pay them for. And if we're going to take and listen to the next level of staffing, of management to tell us what we need to be doing, then that's wrong. We have the chief that we hire, and he is the person that's in charge of that. Lieutenant O'Day is the next person. So the fact that the supervisor of the communications center wasn't included in some of those conversations, I don't have a problem with that. If you have a problem with it, then we as a board need to talk about that and direct the chief that we have a problem with that, and he can take care of it down. We don't need to identify and direct and deal with personnel matters of that kind of stuff in an open meeting like this. So I think some of those discussions have went way too far in this meeting.
Well, that is your opinion, Alderman.
That's right.
And I disagree with it entirely. I think we need the input from those that are in the trenches, those that do the job. So when you say that's wrong, that's your opinion that it's wrong. My opinion, they should be included. Any other comments?
Yes, sir. I did not say they couldn't talk. I did not say that. I said, if that's what you thought I said, I'm sorry that you misunderstood me. What I'm saying is the fact that if we don't feel, she brought up the fact that she didn't feel that she felt she should have been included in those conversations, that she was not included. And I'm saying that we need to identify that situation with the chief, not with her. She does not work for us directly. She works through these people. We have a chain of command we need to use. That's not saying that these people are not welcome to speak. I did not say that at all. If you understood that, that is not what I meant. I meant that we are not their supervisor and we don't need to be directing them. If we have a problem with the way that situation was handled between the chief and the lieutenant, then we need to identify that to the chief.
Well, you're correct. I did not hear it that way. I heard it that you did not want to hear from her, so
No, sir.
thank you. All right, any other comments or questions from the board? Officer Morley, you want to come up?
Just since there's been talk about sufficient staffing, the CPSM study that was released in 2019, since our city paid, what, $40,000 for that, I thought it would be important to refer to that. So I'll quote from that, and this is referring to the 11 authorized positions for dispatch. It stated, staffing is sufficient until a dispatcher takes time off for vacation, illness, FMLA, training, etc. This means that communications, even when fully staffed, teeters on the brink of shortage due to normal time off for dispatchers. Given history of vacancies at the position and its negative impact, consideration should be given to authorize 2 part-time dispatcher positions. So this is basically saying sufficient dispatching. We have those 11 positions, and plus we should consider hiring 2 part-time for sufficient staffing. So if that's what you want to consider sufficient, this study that we paid $40,000 for says 11 positions and recommends 2 part-time. Instead of just throwing out a number and guessing maybe 8 will be good, we could consider referring to this study.
All right, thank you very much.
Kind of question.
Alderman Rucker.
Chief Davis, that was in 2000, that was when that study was done, correct? Correct. Was that not, who were we dispatching for at that time?
Fire department.
I believe just fire department.
We didn't have Lake Ozark also? I thought during that time we had Lake Ozark at that time. When did we lose Lake Ozark?
I'd have to look.
You might want to look,
100%
because
sure.
if that's something we're gonna hang our hat on, even though the report was done in 2019, the statistical information and the fact-finding that they did would have been at least the prior year. And so it would be interesting to know, if that's where we're gonna hang our hat, what agencies were we dispatching for?
All right. Yes, Mike?
This is just, I guess, educational for the aldermen, but in the dispatch center, there's 2 recordings. Lexi will know exactly what I'm talking about. I won't say what they were, but there's 2 recordings of significant incidents that they had when 2 dispatchers were on duty. And she's got all the 911 calls and the radio traffic, and it would be really good for all the aldermen to take 10 minutes and just listen to, you know, the kind of phone calls and radio traffic and, you know, the decisions that are being made, so everybody's kind of on the same page and a little bit educated. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Chief Davis, do you have enough information?
I think so.
All right. All right. All right. Do we need to close the discussion? Or is just, no? All right. Thank you, everybody. We only have one more item if you'd like to stick around, or feel free to go if you're done. But we're going to move on to discussion for emergency approval of work being done to Rockaway Sewage Station by Travis Hodge Hauling for $192,500. Mike Welty, Assistant Administrator, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. We just wanted to make sure that all of the data surrounding the decision to make this emergency purchase was included in a discussion so that the board could see everything and we could be as transparent as possible on how we came about the decision that was made. Just a quick update on the status. Unfortunately, we did have a little bit of a delay on some parts. So I was really hopeful that we were going to have everything either, you know, partially complete by now or totally complete by now. But unfortunately, all the parts just now came in today. So we will actually be starting the rehab tomorrow. In the meantime, our staff has diligently been working on this station on a daily basis. And some days, I just want to make sure that the board understands this, we've put in like 24 hours a day just to make sure that this station does not overflow. So I want the board to understand that we have worked very hard to make sure that we didn't have any problems. And we even though there's been mechanical problems, we have not spilled a drop yet at this station. And cross your fingers, tomorrow we should be able to get the bypass in place and start the repairs and get kind of past this situation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just don't know why you jinx yourself like that.
Anybody have any questions, comments for Mike? All right. Very good. Nice job, Mike.
I have a question of
Yes.
Cole.
On this?
Yeah, on the subject.
Okay.
Basically, I'm concerned about the fact that we dotted our i's and crossed our t's. I mean, we did the vote by email, even though our ordinance does not allow to be a vote by email.
Our ordinance allows the polling in an emergency.
Part of emergency, it
For
does.
emergency.
Okay, so it does that. Do we need to, I was expecting a regular ordinance tonight. We don't need to do that. I'm just concerned that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's on
There would
this.
be no harm in doing one. I think given the fact that it's already been approved and we've already incurred it.
And Kevin, that was my decision, and I just went through kind of like crossroads. It's like, okay, we've already got our approval. We don't need to re-ask for the approval, but we wanted in the minutes confirming what was done, and that was the path I took. Now, obviously, if the attorney thinks we need to do better, that was just
I don't
kind of
think
how
we-
I molded over.
I don't think we need to. I think the way, and I am trying to,
Because it
So do
doesn't.
we, at this point though, should we at least do a motion to approve in an open session what has occurred, since we've never approved it in an open session of meeting?
No, you won't offend me if you do it. Honestly, I don't believe it's necessary, but belt and suspenders, if you want to, I don't think there's any, it can't hurt.
If it would appease you, then go ahead and make the motion.
I don't know that we can make a motion now because it's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda.
Yeah,
It's the
okay,
next
all right.
time.
But for the time being, though, as a discussion, the legal guy says we're good. So if you want to bring it up next meeting, great. but-
The mayor can say it more directly than I can.
There we go.
I would just point out that we followed 135.070 2B to the letter. So we follow the ordinance as it is written.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hanging my hat on. That said, if you would like an ordinance first and second reading next time ratifying that decision, we'll be more than happy to put one together.
I will review the ordinance and determine that.
Let me know. Give me 5 days notice.
I want to review that.
All right, we're going to move on to staff communications. We'll start with City Administrator Gina Woods.
Don't be demoting me, my
Sorry.
goodness. Mayor's, members of the board, I don't really have any update on my update list. Really, the one item has to do with the joint sewer board that Kevin will be probably emailing me about to get started because we do budget process here for long. As far as other updates, all your reservations, hotel rooms are all been made for MML in Kansas City. If you have any change of your plans, let me know ASAP so we can appropriately try to cancel those should you change. Closer to the date, I'll get you an agenda. I will handle all the payment once we all check in. However, on another note, be looking out in your emails. You may or may not get, and I think one's already went out, invitations to other socials that's not tied directly to your MML registration. I do not organize those for you all. I get you signed up, get you a hotel, make sure you're all checked in and paid. But I noticed one from one group come out, because there'll be very different groups that have socials different nights, so they will send them to your city email because that's your registration email. It is up to you whether to RSVP those things. So I just didn't want you to miss it, but didn't want you also assume I was planning your social nights while you're there.
I thought Bob Osteen was social chair.
Bob
Is that
is
wrong?
quite the social organizer, but even he'll watch his emails, and so there's always several. And a lot of times when you get there, get to MML, and you get down to the exhibit hall, my goodness, I went blank, and there'll be other groups that you may meet, but just keep an eye on your emails because you may get those directly to you, and I just didn't want you to assume Tara or I, either one, organize those for you because we don't. Other than that, that's all I have.
Very good. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty.
Yeah, just a quick update on Public Works. We have accepted an offer for a new sewer tech, and he will be starting on the 21st of this month.
Excellent.
And I do believe that we are getting ready to make an offer for a sewer foreman. So we'll see how that goes. But just wanted to give you an update on those two positions. Okay, I'm sorry. I've just been reminded that we also are hiring a transportation tech as well. So that's all I have. Thanks.
All right, thank you. City Clerk Tara Barloff.
You know, I really don't have a whole lot. This has been a really interesting meeting, but I did forget to wish Mike Welty happy 50th birthday.
On public record.
I was going to keep it secret.
Well, you know.
Is it actually
I just
today?
thought we needed something fun.
Yes, awesome.
There's posters up around throughout the building.
There was.
There was today on the bulletin board. And,
All right.
They're like the blue dots. They're everywhere.
All right, City Attorney Cole Bradbury.
I have been extremely busy working on a few of my staff update lists, and on that note, I already spoke with Alderman Morelos and Alderman Rucker. I still need to set a time to meet with Alderman Schuman and Alderman Osteen at your convenience in the next week or so to bring you up to speed on one of our big projects that's on here that I won't name. And Gina and I have been talking about the development guidelines as well, which has kind of been backburnered a little bit. And then Dave and I have been working diligently, and we're hoping to have a update to the design guidelines, as well as some of our ordinances that relate to those design guidelines into the September Planning Commission meeting, which means the 2 October board meetings. That will give us plenty of time for public hearing on those issues, input from landowners, industry, everybody involved in that. Ron and Carrie have been quite helpful as well on some of those issues. So we are getting those things up and running. As Chief can tell you, we are in the hot and heavy season of tourist traffic. We had another 2 trials last week and still undefeated. So justice is being served at the local level, and that's really all I have.
All right. Chief Davis.
Nothing further.
Building official, Ron White.
Is this on? A couple of things. I just want to recognize my staff, toot our own horn, my 2 inspectors here lately. We've had days where we've been pushing close to 20 inspections in a day. As you guys see as you're throughout town, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Other than that, I'm happy to report that the building inspection department and the building maintenance department are both fully staffed.
Very good. All right. Human Resource, Michael Ray.
Bishop. Thank you, Mayor. Just piggybacking off of what Mike Welty said, as far as staffing goes at Public Works, Water Department is full with this last hire in July. Our Transportation Department will be filled by the end of this month. As far as sewer, we will have 3 sewer tech openings. So that department will be almost fully staffed. Granted, these are all new employees. They're all coming in as Tech 1s and need to be trained. But hopefully our new sewer superintendent and sewer foreman will help with that process. And just with the dispatch, you know, we did have an offer letter out that we had to rescind. We sent out a secondary applicant offer letter, and we've had no response on that. So they're very few and far between, and a lot of ghosting on those. As far as loggers goes, trying to get a meeting set up with Jeff Pabst there at Loggers, Gian and I, to go over some of the results and some of the numbers in order to bring to the board. And then our employee engagement survey went out this week. And I know that's been one thing since I've been here that's been talked about almost every board meeting. So we've got that out. Hopefully we'll have that, the results back. It closes in 2 weeks and we can get the data that next following week.
Very good. All right, thank you very much. Economic Development, Mitchell Moon.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor and members of the board. All is well in Econ Development Department.
Well done.
Very good, very good.
We
All
have
right.
prime staffing.
Dave Van Leer, Cochran?
Yeah, just a quick update. I'm sure as you've been seeing as you come in the building, the work going on outside of City Hall. Per your contract, that work is expected to be done in early October. So that is going to go on for a little while longer. In addition to the concrete work that's being done, the parking lot, new asphalt pavement will be placed, and then we're also bringing in an additional exit at for the police and ambulance at the other side of the building. So that all of that work scheduled to be complete in early October. The other update I wanted to give the board, in talks with Mike and some of the other staff here, we are planning to kind of put a hold on bidding of any projects for a little bit. We've been seeing, it's been challenging to get bids from contractors, and the bids we're getting are higher than what we're expecting to see. So between those two things, we're going to just kind of delay any further bidding and then reschedule some of those projects for this fall and into the winter. So just an update for the board on that so you know what's coming. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Parks and Rec, Eric Gregory.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody that came out for the fishing derby yesterday evening. It was well attended, even though it was a little warm, and the recent storms had made our pond look like chocolate milk pretty much and stirred up the vegetation, but there was lots of happy kids and lots of smiles, lots of fish caught, even though the water was a little murky, and we did have a certain alderman show up, and I don't know if her children were having more fun or she was catching the fish. So anyway, it was a good event.
I was helping them reel,
Helping.
whether they were standing next to me or not.
Just a reminder that the Osage Beach Rummage Sale is scheduled for September 16th, and new this year is we're going to host it at the City Park instead of City Hall. We have quite a bit more room there, and it will be at 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Already have quite a few signed up. I did confirm Bless This Burger food truck will be there, and we also have a lemonade truck for lemonade and frozen lemonade as well. So if you're interested in attending that, you can come by City Hall, and it's a $15 fee to have a space, or you can give the Parks and Rec office a call, and we can walk you through the Civic Rec sign-up process. Also just met with the Lake of the Ozarks Food Truck Coalition, and we had our planning meeting for the Fall Food Truck Festival, which is September 23rd and 24th. Just so you know, the Spring Food Truck Festival, we had 17 trucks there and was extremely popular. I don't think we were expecting it to be so popular. So in anticipation for that, I was told they already have 25 trucks signed up. So this is going to be a bigger event than the spring one. And we're on top of it. Parks Department has it covered. So, and then just kind of out of left field, no pun intended, the Parks Department is currently exploring different options to expand our rentals of our athletic fields and to include coordinating tournaments and Little League. Currently working with Cole to put together a request for proposal about possibly allowing an outside entity to do so. We were recently approached from an outside organization about doing this, and so we're moving forward with this request for proposal, and we will keep the board updated as more information becomes available. And I had other things I was going to talk about in the interest of time. The last thing I want to say is just like in advance, thank volunteers from the Church of Osage Hills. We have about 30 coming out Saturday morning to work on park improvement projects in both parks, City and Phoenix, and so the help is very welcome, because like everybody else, we have no seasonal help right now. So we plan on a busy morning, and again, appreciate their help. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. City Planner, Kerry Patterson.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board, no planning commission meeting this month. Bradbury decided to steal my thunder on the one for September, but I would like everyone to keep in mind that while Mr. Van Leer, Mr. Bradbury, and Mr. Welty are bringing those things to the planning commission, that is the first opportunity for the public to hear those things, hear the explanations from our professionals, and then formulate any questions that they may have for those professionals that they would like to bring up to the board. So the planning commission meeting is a good opportunity for them to do that. We do have a Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting this month with 2 variance requests on it. Variances are, kind of one of those crazy things. We went from 2011 to 2014 and didn't have a single one, and then sometimes we get 3, 4, or 5 in a couple of months. This month we actually have 2. I will throw out real quick, Mr. Welty forwarded a traffic study that the city had done for the Nichols Road and Dude Ranch area. We put a lot of time into that as a planning department, because those type of studies look heavily into what could happen in the future. They submitted a deliverable to us that we're taking a look at, and it would be certainly worth all of you at least seeing what their conclusions were, so you can get an idea on those things. And other than that, I have nothing further, Mayor.
Very good. Alderman Rucker.
Just want to let the board know that also the city attorney failed to mention he is also working on a project for the sewer board, joint sewer board.
I blocked it out.
I took on the responsibility, and actually Gina kind of helped. I don't know if Gina volunteered me or I volunteered her, but anyway, we're redoing the contract.
I didn't argue.
We're redoing the contract for the our provider, which is Alliance, that provides the services for us at the sewer plant, and so we're redoing that contract. And Cole is spending some time and getting it all put in shape and go from there. So thank you for that. That's it.
All right. Alderman Schuman.
Yes, just wanted to reiterate with the fishing derby. That was a very fun event. It's kind of nice to hear my kids say that mom's a better fisher than dad. But also to thank your staff that was out there, because there were several members from the Parks Department that was there, and with the weather having moved a lot of the vegetation towards the shoreline, there was a lot of bobbers speckled in there, and they were there to put the hooks on. They put the worms on if you wanted. My daughter was loving playing with them, so they didn't put her worms on. But they had plenty of poles there, and they were out there in that heat with us. So I really appreciate your staff for being there and putting it on.
What I enjoyed the most was lots of smiles, even though it was hot, lots of kids having fun, and you didn't see any of them on their phone or anything.
Nope, it was great. I got both my kids to hold a fish and let them go. It was great. That was it.
All right. Alderman Hoffman.
One of them was this big.
Well, first of all, I want to thank, I've been working independently with some of the staff members. Just some constituents have reached out to me, had some problems, whether it was drainage or a pipe bursting or general information. And I just want to thank all the staff members who have taken the time to go out, especially Cole and Mr. Welty. Welty went on the road with me. He's actually a fairly pleasant person out on the road, so that made it all the more enjoyable. We had some good laughs. So thank you to everyone for that. Secondly, per the discussion that happened tonight, which I thought this is going to be a light night, this is going to be quick. I really didn't anticipate so much feedback from the dispatch people. And I think the discussion was good because I know there was a lot of work done behind the scenes on this. And from the Lake Ozark people to Chief to Alderman Rucker, I'm sure there's been a lot of work done on this over the years. So I don't want to minimize that in any way. But I do think this discussion kind of brought some things out of the shadows that we should look into. And I want to thank everyone for both their hard work and for being open and transparent and coming out and giving their views tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Osteen.
You almost got off lucky, and I was going to defer no comments this evening, but change of heart. I feel like some of the comments that were made by the board this evening were dismissive of the concerns we had from our members in the public. I don't believe that was the intent, but I do believe that's how they were perceived. Likewise, my comments directed to Lexi directly were to encourage her to put her concerns regarding the changes, the merger, staffing, et cetera, in writing and send that up the ladder. It was not to circumvent the chain of command, even though that is how that may have been perceived. I just want to reiterate that the board and all department heads and managers do embrace and encourage feedback from all levels of staffing. All of our employees, we are more than happy to listen to their concerns about their jobs, their bosses, the community, et cetera. That only makes us better. That gives us more information to feed off of so we can, as a whole, improve all departments, the city, et cetera. That's it.
All right, thank you. Alderman Rose.
Well said. You know, I think with all these storms that we've had on this horrible rain that we've had, and I heard, I was not available, of course, but I heard that just the other night, or pre-dawn, I should say, there was a horrible mishap on the bridge. The semi, I don't, and then some cars might have just, whatever, what do you call it?
Hydroplane?
Anyway, flew up and went around, but the bridge was really blocked. And one woman I know had explained to me, she said, I was not only blinded by the rain, but by the flashing lights when I was there in the bridge. I can't imagine what all transpired. I didn't hear about it from her until afterwards. But I think we ought to put a shout out because of the rain and the runoff that went on Nichols Road again. Shout out to the developer or contractors there of cleaning it up rapidly, the best they could with all the rain. And I think that's important that the city recognizes, you know, our residents are being bothered by this, and obviously they can be very upset, and I can understand that. But it's my understanding from some residents that they were duly there on time, so to speak, timely, to do their best to clean it up, because on Nichols Road. Anyway, I just wanted to relay that to the board, and I think that was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have much tonight. I've talked quite a bit too. I just want to reiterate kind of the same thing you did too, is that I appreciated hearing from Lake Ozark and the police, the dispatch, the fire department, because I think we're all in agreement that we would love to merge together someday. And so let's keep moving forward and listen to everybody. But tonight's discussion was good, like Alderman Hoffman said. I mean, I would rather have discussions like this than every time we rubber stamp everything. So we hear input, we hear arguments, we hear feedback, and that's what makes us better. So thank you, everybody. And if those at home, if you take anything from tonight, we're open for business. So if you want to apply for a job, we have several departments here, and I mean that sincerely. And we've been talking with HR about doing a little job fair sometime. But if you're listening tonight, we're hiring some people, and it's a good gig, and then we need your service. So if there's nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Alderman Hoffman, Alderman Rucker, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Huh? Do I want to